There are a few clips going around of different folks who are preaching to their demographic. These are usually folks on the left, people like Ibram Kendi, and these are people who are, well, they don't know how to define racism. They don't know how racism or systemic racism really works, although they think they do. And they're preaching about equality of outcome and equity. And so this is something that is necessary to dive into because we're seeing a distorted ideology, and we're seeing people who are really the middlemen of a certain agenda that's being pushed. And so let's say you have the agenda at the top, and you have different institutions, entities, government agencies, they trickle down the information, and they need spokespeople to get the word out. They need spokespeople to connect with the people from a grassroots level, or as grassroots as you can get it, although we have social media, so you can kind of scale it with a megaphone. And so you have people like Ibram Kendi, where they go to lectures, they go to talks, they speak out, they have YouTube channels, whatever it is. And a lot of what they're saying is not logical. There's no reasoning to it, but they have an emotional appeal towards the people. And who they're speaking to, the demographic that they're speaking to, may be within the same ideology, the same race, ethnic background, or just a general population of people who are not critically thinking for themselves. And so when you have someone like Ibram Kendi or whoever else it is, it could be Al Sharpton, there are a ton of people. It could be examples, little pithy statements, like when LeBron James gives a small statement about how he is threatened every single day from police officers, even though I think he'll be a billionaire by the end of his contract and all that. If he got pulled over, the cops would ask him for a picture. They wouldn't arrest him unless he was committing a crime. Even then, he may get some leeway on that, especially within the area that he lives in. And so when you look at these people who are living such high lives in terms of status and wealth because they've built their career or reputation, aside from LeBron James, they built their career or reputation based off of making people feel like they're victims. You have a reciprocation on the other end. So these two parties are responsible. The people who are speaking to the demographic, and then the demographic of people themselves, where it's easier to feel like a victim than it is to have a victor mentality, right? So if you feel like a victim, you feel like you're being oppressed. You feel like other people or other entities that maybe you can or cannot describe are committing an action against you, and it's easier to sit back and be dependent on the state, be dependent on other people, and say, it's not my fault, they're doing it to me, and so that's my reasoning for why I'm not at this point in my life where I don't make a certain amount of money, or I'm overweight, whatever the reason is. Now, there may be some valid reasons and some exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, we don't have systematic racism anymore. Let me clarify. We do, but it's not the same type of systemic racism that we had before. It's now affirmative action and is targeting Caucasians or Asians, specifically if we're looking at Harvard or other Ivy League schools, where they're now requiring higher SAT scores for Asians to get in because they're deeming that Asians should be put on a higher pedestal in terms of scoring because of who they are genetically. So that's a very racist thing. That's discriminatory. That's prejudice. And so affirmative action is like racism. If we want to say reverse racism, it's still racism. And so we have people who are in the audience, they're listening to these people, and they're not thinking about how they can win at life. They're thinking about, I'm oppressed. There's nothing I can do. I'm being pushed down. I'm being drowned. This guy, this person, this girl, they're emotionally compelling. They're giving me comfort. It's like, why are so many people overweight in America? Well, it's obvious from our primitive genetic point of view. We're chasing fat, sugars, salts, and so that is to hold on to energy in case we don't have access to food later. But a lot of people use it as a form of relief from stress. A lot of people use it as comfort, right? There's comfort food. And so they go out, and just like any other substance, they're using food as a substance to cure whatever other whatever diseases or illnesses or stressors that they have in their life. So they're not solving the root problem. They're putting a Band-Aid on it, but it's a very bad Band-Aid. It's actually a Band-Aid that harms you long-term. And so we see a lot of chronic diseases like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, such and so forth. So we need to, and I can speak here into the camera, but it's really upon the individual. You have to want it bad enough to sit back and say, okay, where are the things that are going wrong in my life? Is there racism in the world? There's racism in the world, okay? Every race, ethnic background, religion has been criticized or critiqued. It doesn't matter who you are. There are even people within how other races would look at certain races, like in Asia or India, even within those populations, amongst their own people, they are prejudiced or discriminatory to each other. So this is a tribalist thing. This is a human thing. It's innate within us for various reasons, mainly to be part of a group. To ensure that group's survival, they have to go and attack another group, or at least set that other group at odds with themselves. So that's how we evolved. That's how we ended up surviving to come to this point in our species. So people need to sit back and think logically. Are there things that are against me? Yes. I will say the government is removing opportunity. So it's not removing opportunity. It's not how it's presented by a lot of these hustlers is that the current status quo, the current system is not designed for you. And so we have to dismantle the system and build something new. Well, it's not that we have to break it down and build something new. The current system works. However, you have people like these race hustlers, who come in and they're part of the group that is dismantling the current system, which will actually not benefit you in the long term. The current system we have of a meritocratic system, equal opportunity, individual rights, being able to be your own entrepreneur, low taxes, low regulation, that actually benefits you. See, what the government is doing right now, and a lot of other countries have already enabled this, is they want to remove your individual rights. They want to degrade it over time. They can't remove it all at once. They have to degrade it over time. So you get conditioned to it. Then they have to increase your taxes so they can spend more money, go into more debt, bankrupt the entire nation. And they want to make it harder for you to run a business, add more regulation. So that is called removing opportunity. That now you have a substantiated claim of, I am being oppressed in some fashion. But even in that substantiated claim, you still have to fight for what you believe in, metaphorically speaking. You still have to go after building a business. You still have to scale it. You still have to find a way to make money. You still have to find a way to improve yourself at every level. You have to become more charismatic. You have to be smarter. You have to make sure you look at your best. You have to dress well. You have to be able to educate yourself. Don't rely on the school system to educate you. The school system is not designed to educate you. It was designed to create, it was part of the Prussian model system, to create obedient factory workers. Now it has transitioned to corporations can now hire people who are just going to follow their rules. And oftentimes when you go into a new job, they're teaching you something that's proprietary to them. It's not something that you may have learned in school, although you may have taken a few things from school to apply it to your current field. But most of the time, it's self-education. All of these things are all upon you. You have to take personal accountability. You have to be personally responsible for your future and your life. There are a lot of things that you cannot control. You can't control your height. You can't control your hair color. You can't control if you have certain defects or flaws, quirks. But you can certainly improve who you are. But if you take the victim mentality route, you will never win. And all these people are doing is they're using you as pawns, even though they themselves are pawns. They're just the middleman. But they're using you as pawns to uplift themselves. They're benefiting from the system. So they may be a minority. They may be in the small category of personnel who feels disaffected, or at least from the outside, it would look like they would be disaffected by the system. But they have wealth, they have status, and they're going out to different colleges or different lecture halls, and they're speaking to you. And they're able to do that in this current system because they've taken advantage of the system that allows them to do that. Now, it's not so much a great thing, but the system is agnostic in terms of you can build whatever you want so long as you don't infringe on someone else's rights, and you can profit off of that, and you can build something. So you yourself, you can actually build something. Now, everyone has different roles. Not everyone is meant to be a CEO or a Fortune 500 company. Not everyone is designed to build something like Apple. Maybe you don't particularly like politics or technology, but you have to find what you're interested in, what you're good at, and what you can monetize. You combine those three things, you're golden. Now, if you can just find something you're good at and something you can monetize, at least you can make the money part. Then you can build something on the side that you're interested in. But regardless of that, you can always improve yourself, your health, your well-being, your mental mindset, your mental state. You can improve all of these things. It takes years. It takes a lot of development. You'll never be fully complete. I mean, this is a lifelong journey. But whenever you have someone telling you what you can't do and you're oppressed and you're victimized, and they're not backing up their claims by anything, it's all emotional ranting, and they're not giving you any solutions, they're just saying it is what it is, and you should feel bad about yourself, you should feel like you're oppressed and just sit there and wallow in your misery, that is not conducive towards you being prosperous in the future. That doesn't do anything for you. So all of these people should be criticized. They should have a right to do what they're doing because we live in the United States of America, but they should be criticized. And you as an audience member, you as a viewer, you as a listener, to whoever out there is trying to con you, you should be able to wake up and leave that situation and go find other people to listen to who are actually helping you be more productive in life. Now, there's a lot of information out there. You have the whole internet. I understand you got to filter content. You got to sift through information. That's part of the process. Just like you have to filter through the people around you. You got to cut some friends out, maybe even family. You have to do what is necessary for yourself so you can better yourself, people around you, and then your community. There's no shortcut to this. There's no easy way out. It's not as simple as sitting at home, being locked down, and getting a government check. Ultimately, you're now dependent on government, and the government has control over your resources. They have control over your life. And that's a very dangerous position to be in. Over time, centralized figures, they do want more control over your life. They do want more power. And if they control everything that you do in your life, the rationing for your food, the rationing for your gasoline, the rationing for your meats, whatever would make you stronger mentally and physically, that is something that they could control. And so you never want to give up that control to other people. You always want to be in a position yourself where you have the utmost control over your life. It's getting very difficult to do as time goes on because everything is becoming more technological. And so it's easier to have surveillance. It's easier to have systems in place through technology or AI that can prohibit people from certain actions or restrict them or create certain barriers. So this is more immediate than ever to go out and do something that you can build while other people are trying to create barriers in place against you or against what you're trying to do. This is just something to think about. Obviously, everyone has a different life. Everyone has a different role. But if you can take something out of this and you can go and build something productive, or you can go do something productive with your life, even if it just means, if you're on the radical end, just cut out soda, right? Cut out soda. Move it a little bit more. Go to the gym every day. Move it a little bit more. Work on a business for 2 hours a day. I know it's difficult. We all have jobs. We all have so much time. Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. We all have to eat. We all have to sleep. But you have to find time in your day to cut out leisure, cut out playtime, and fill that time with something productive so that you can enjoy the future instead of being in a situation 5 to 10 years from now where you're dealing with the negative consequences of what you did not do for the past 5 to 10 years.